in the 20th century, the greatest guerrilla warfare campaigners were almost invariably communists. Now, guerrilla warfare, though, is not modern, it's ancient. The Maccabees fought a guerrilla war campaign in intertestamental times. So it goes back a long, long way. But reading Helaman and 3rd Nephi, I began to notice that that's exactly what the Gadianton robbers did. They started off as an urban terrorist group, and then they were driven out, and they withdrew into, well, shall we say, the equivalent of Tora Bora. They went into an area where it was really hard, even for a high-tech army and air force, to get them out, as we are currently experiencing. And then they could make lightning raids down, and then when people came up after them, those people could be ambushed, you know, at the places of their choosing, in narrow canyons and so on. It was very, very hard to deal with them. But the trick is that eventually a guerrilla army has to switch over to conventional warfare, because they can't win a war like that. They have to ultimately occupy territory. That's what winning the war means. Now, the trick about it is that you have to know when it's the right time to make the transformation. And it's very easy to do it prematurely. And so one of the greatest mistakes in all the manuals is what Mao called premature regularization, where you conclude too early that you're ready for this. You fight a pitched battle, you hold territory, and the enemy can now choose when he wants to come against you, and you can't choose to flee unless you go back to guerrilla warfare fighting. Well, in the Book of Mormon, you see a case where they do that. The Gadianton robbers come out of the mountains, they besiege the Nephite cities. The Nephites neatly reverse things. The Nephites launch a scorched earth campaign, gather up all the crops and so on into the cities. In effect, these cities become their mountains. They launch sorties out of the fortified cities. The Gadiantons, meanwhile, are starving because there's nothing out there to eat. The crops have been destroyed. So they have to break up into smaller groups to forage, which means they're really vulnerable. And the Nephites can come out when they choose, attack them and pick them off. So in both their successes and their failures, they are like a by-the-book example of guerrilla warfare theory. Now, I ask myself, is this the kind of thing that Joseph Smith would have come up with? Probably not. We know something about Joseph Smith's attitude toward war and the military. And it was very romantic. I mean, it's hard for us to imagine at a time when the military has largely lost its romance, post-Vietnam and all that sort of thing. But especially in the days after 1776, and a lot of those people were still alive. Joseph was only born in 1805. It was still romantic to get people dressed up in uniform, play the fife and drum, have parades. And what did Joseph Smith like to do in Nauvoo? His favorite title was the title bestowed upon him by the governor and legislature of Illinois, which was Lieutenant General Joseph Smith, Commander of the Nauvoo Legion. He signs lots of letters this way. It actually seems kind of funny to me. I mean, in that sense, he's very much a person of his time. He's very proud of that title. And so he liked to be on his black horse Charlie and review the Nauvoo Legion and all that sort of thing. This is the romantic kind of image of war. But the Book of Mormon is anything but romantic about warfare. What do you get from Mormon, who actually, unlike Joseph, had been in prolonged, brutal wars? He hated them, just hated them. There's no fife and drum, there's no parades, there's nothing nice about them at all. In fact, Mormon comes across as kind of a misanthrope sometimes. You know, thus we see the nothingness of the children of man. I mean, you can recognize Mormon's voice when he's commenting. Because as he says, from the time he was a little kid, all he'd ever seen was wickedness. He never saw the Nephites in a healthy situation. He has a very distinct voice. But when he portrays the wars, there's nothing of that. And the Gadianton robbers and the fight against them have nothing to do with Joseph Smith's environment, with uniforms and parades and drums and fifes and all that sort of thing. So again, it seems to me utterly foreign to Joseph, but very accurate, very authentic in detail in ways that I think are unlikely to have come from his mind. Now, who is the boss here? When should I sit down?
I was going to say, if you want to open it up for questions and answers,
okay,
now that's great.
Good, I've done enough. Well,